So if you're looking to buy a home and affordability is something that you're struggling with, you may be looking at purchasing a multifamily property. This is a 2 to 4 unit residential property where you can actually live in one of the units while renting out the others. But there are things you need to be careful of depending on the type of mortgage you're getting. I'm Brand the Mortgage Man, and I've helped more than 10,000 home buyers over my 20+ year career in mortgages. And today I'm here to help you. So let's get right into it. So as I said, you're trying to make a home more affordable, so you're looking at multifamily properties as the option to make that happen. And the reason I say that is, as I said in my intro, you can actually use rental income from the properties you're not living in or the units you're not living in to offset your overall payment. And I'm going to show you how this works briefly, and then I'm going to explain why you need to be careful with the type of mortgage you're getting. So first, let's look at a conventional mortgage. So with a conventional mortgage, if it's backed by Fannie Mae, you can actually purchase a multifamily property, which we said is 2 to 4 units. This is for residential, meaning you live there, not commercial. You can do that with 5% down. This means that you're living in one of the units. This isn't purchasing it specifically to be an investment property. If you're buying it as an investment, you'd have to put 25% down. However, if you're buying it for affordability purposes and you're gonna live in one of the units, then you are okay putting 5% down. So let's just say that you had a $400,000 loan, not purchase price, but $400,000 loan on this property. And we're gonna say it's over 30 years. And I'm just gonna use a made up interest rate about where the market is right now. So we're gonna say that the rate on that is 6.999% over 30 years. So what we wanna do is we wanna figure out what the principal and interest payment is on this mortgage. So I'm gonna use my mortgage calculator. We're gonna say $400,000 loan amount, 30-year term, 6.999 interest payment. So the principal and interest payment, so this not including taxes, not including insurance, is $2,660.94 per month. Now, because you're putting down 5%, you have to pay mortgage insurance. So let's just say you have excellent credit, say it's 780. I know you may not be there, but I'm gonna use that for this example. So let's just say your mortgage insurance is running you about $200 per month on this property. So that's mortgage insurance. This is principal and interest. Now you're also gonna have property taxes. So property taxes on a $400,000 property, let's call that $600 per month. You're gonna have to pay homeowners insurance. That's insurance for hurricanes and fire and things of that nature. Let's say that the homeowners insurance is $300 per month. So let's add all this together, figure out what our payment's gonna be. So if 6, 9, 1100, we're at $3760.94, principal, interest, tax, insurance, and mortgage insurance. So this is your total payment on this property. But let's just say that that's completely unaffordable for you. Maybe your goal was to have a monthly payment of $1,500. Well, clearly a payment of almost $3,800 far exceeds the $1,500 you're comfortable. So let's just say our target payment for you is $1,500. So how do we get to $1,500? Well, like we said early on, you're looking at a multifamily property because you can actually rent out the 3 units you're not living in, assuming it's a 4 unit, which is what we're looking at in this scenario. So we have 4 units total, right? Minus the 1 unit you live in, leaves 3 units, right? So these 3 units are gonna be rented out. So let's just say each of these units rents for $1,000 per month. That's market rent. So we can take these 3 units, 1,000 plus 1,000 plus 1,000 is $3,000. That's your income that you're receiving off of these properties. Now we said the total payment for this property is $3,760.94. So if we take this rent that you're receiving and we subtract it from your total payment, what's left is $760.94 per month. This is the amount that you're responsible for on a monthly basis. So what was previously unaffordable or hard to obtain, we were targeting a $1,500 payment. We actually exceeded that by getting it down to $760.94. Far more affordable and well within the budget or target payment that we set for you, right? So that's why you're looking at multifamily. This is how it would work on a conventional mortgage. Really, nothing else needs to be done after this. However, where you need to be careful is if you're looking to buy a multifamily property using an FHA mortgage, and I'm gonna show you why. So this was conventional. We're gonna run the same exact scenario, but we're gonna be using an FHA mortgage this time. I'm gonna show you a couple extra steps that need to be taken, or one major step, I should say, that needs to be taken on an FHA mortgage that can change everything. So this was conventional. So now we're gonna go FHA. Once again, you have to live in one of the units. We're saying 2 to 4. In this case, actually, let's just make it easy. Let's just say it's a 4 unit because that's already what we ran everything on. We can put as little as 3.5% down this time around because that's what FHA loans allow. Once again, you're gonna live in the property. And we'll use a little bit different. Let's just say the loan amount's a little bit lower. Okay, so what we're gonna do in this case is 3.5% down. We're gonna say your base loan amount, and I'll explain what I mean by base loan amount in a moment, is $410,125. I say base loan amount because if you've watched my video where I discuss how FHA mortgages work and some additional costs involved with FHA mortgages, is that FHA mortgages have an upfront mortgage insurance premium that gets financed on top of your base loan amount. So this represents 96.5% of whatever the purchase price is. However, you have the upfront mortgage insurance premium, which is 1.75% of the 410,125. So we take 410,125 times 0.0175. This means your upfront mortgage insurance premium is $7,177.19. Now we're not going to use the 19 cents because you can't finance change. You'll pay that out of pocket. However, we're going to take your 410,125 plus the 7177, and that's going to give us 417,302. This is your total loan amount. So this is what we're basing our numbers on. Previously it was on a $400,000 loan. This is on 417,302. So we're gonna take our 417,302. FHA rates are lower than conventional rates. So let's just say that the interest rate is 6.25% over 30 years. So I'm gonna say at 6.25%, over 30 years, our principal and interest payment is $2,569.40. Now, on top of this, you're also still gonna have monthly mortgage insurance, which is different than the upfront mortgage insurance premium. So to figure out your monthly mortgage insurance is we take the 410,125, multiply it by 0.0055, and then divide that number by 12. So our mortgage insurance on a monthly basis is $187.97. That's for this specific scenario. It's gonna be different depending on the amount you're borrowing and the amount of your purchase price. On top of that, we're gonna have property taxes, we're gonna call that $600, and we're gonna have insurance, let's call that $300. So let's add up our payment. We have $2,569.40, $187.97, plus another $900 for tax and insurance. So our payment on this property is $3,657.37. Now, that's great. And once again, you can rent out the other units, right? We said there are 4 units total in this case, just like before, right? Minus the 1 unit you live in, leaves 3 units. Once again, if we say that these units rent for $1,000 each, right? There's our $3,000, again, of income, minus that, leaves you 6, right? We subtract it off here. I'll do it just like before. You can see the full exercise. Leaves $657.37 that you have to pay after the rent. Here's the thing. You have to take one extra step though when you're doing an FHA mortgage on a 3 or 4 unit property. And that's called a self-sufficiency test. This is where it becomes difficult to do FHA financing on 3 or 4 unit properties. What the self-sufficiency test measures is if you rented out all 4 units. So let's just say this 4th unit was rented out and that was another $1,000 per month. So rather than $3,000, we have $4,000 per month, right? So we take the 4,000, this is the way you measure this. You take the total as if everything was rented out. In this case, we're gonna call it $4,000 per month. But then you have to take a vacancy factor into account, meaning that what if there's no one renting one of the units? And you have to count 25%. So if you subtract 25% of 4,000, well, 25% of 4,000 is 1,000. So that's gonna leave you $3,000. Here's where the issue comes in. This $3,000 needs to be equal to or greater than the total payment. Well, $3,000 in this example is less than $3,657.37, which means that this property does not pass the self-sufficiency test and is not eligible for FHA financing. And here's the other thing. Let's just say you weren't even planning to rent out any of the properties for whatever reason, right? We were talking about affordability, but let's just say that wasn't your plan. You're actually going to keep all four, weren't going to rent, or didn't even need to use the rental income from those properties to help qualify. If it doesn't pass the self-sufficiency test, that would still be based upon what market rent is. You cannot finance the 3 to 4 unit property using an FHA mortgage. So keep that in mind. So as I said, if you're planning to buy a multifamily property, anywhere from 2 to 4 units, and on FHA, when it comes to 3 or 4, this comes into play. This does not apply on a 2-unit property, but a 3 or 4 it would. Be careful if you're going FHA, and make sure the lender you're working with understands that the property needs to pass the self-sufficiency test, because lenders who are not as well versed on multifamily financing may try to go FHA for you and then run into this issue later on in the process. So make sure you bring it up, show them how educated you are on the process if you are truly looking to buy a multifamily property and working with a lender on that. Make sure to comment on this video with your specific scenario so I can answer your questions directly, as I do reply to 100% of the comments left on my videos. And make sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this one.